This is it.
Dude, I already like it.
Helmet hair shaking on the tarmac. Moon dust still in the folds of my hands. You look up, but your sky is crowded. Tiny screens drowning out the span. Every face glowing in the blue light. Every street buzzing sharp and loud. I float in the gravity of old fights. You laugh like it's just another cloud. Passing from up there, you're a blue marble. Bruised paper thin halo, hanging abused. I held my breath as you spun in the dark. How can you burn what you are? How can you burn what you are? Saw your eyes through a scratched window.
So let's get to the show because we got a lot of show this morning, and I was giving a little teaser there because the Major, our first guest up this morning. Major, it's good to see you. Welcome to the show in this crazy 48 hours. That's the single I released yesterday. It's available on almost all the streaming services. Apple is lagging. I don't know why. I think it's because I slapped it up there fairly fast. I was going to release it this summer.
You guys hit it hard, man. That's awesome.
Wow. I spend a good portion of my days in between shows, morning and afternoon, and then in between in my one free day on Sunday, singing my ass off, just like my whole goal, and this started as a project of like, okay, how do I sing without hurting myself so that I can sing all the time? So I had to find the sweet spot and the comfort zone for my throat to hit the notes I know I can hit without pressure and all that stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to set up my mic and start retracking these songs that I did in the 90s that I've just had sitting around and writing a few new ones. And I was just like, if I ever catch myself working, I'm going to stop so that my voice, if I start tightening up or if I start pushing or it takes any work at all, I'm like, I stop for the day. So I really am training myself because, an amateur could do anything a professional could do. The professional could just do it again tomorrow. And so that's the key, you know what I mean? And good muscle memory and all that kind of stuff really matters. So there you go.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of wild because your voice, you have it's a solid tone.
Yeah.
And then holy smokes, how are you hitting those high spots like that, man?
Right.
Dude, man,
well,
you guys can scream that stuff.
That's the Jeff Tate, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I got there. I really did. And I scare everybody's cats when I do that, but on the show. But I do that. It's because I had to learn to shift in my head voice for Nerd Halen for the Sammy Hagar stuff. And since I have to sing Dave and Sammy in the same show, I'm like, that's two different singers with two different styles.
Yeah.
And one is really trained and one is not at all. And so you have to sing kind of sloppy for Dave and you have to sing very disciplined for Sammy. And so I just decided if I'm ever going to be able to speak again after these shows, I'm going to have to sing discipline for both of them. And that's a lot of work. So we got to, yeah.
That makes really good. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I always liked the music, the singing of Sammy Hagar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody likes to Panama.
Yeah, right.
Those are just bad. Those are just bad songs. But Sammy Hagar, I've always liked his voice, man.
Yes.
I've always liked it.
Well, we do dreams and we do the really high note Sammy stuff, and I wanted to do that for the fans. So, I got to tell you, when we at the idea of doing it, I was staring into a vocal abyss. I was like, oh damn, because that and straight up will climb, like those notes. And I'm not warmed up. That's just me hitting them. And then zero style. I'm not putting any grit on them this early in the morning. You don't do that. But those are the notes. That's where they are in my throat. And I lift my head almost theatrically, but I don't have to. And that was like, I literally had to like, okay, don't relax every muscle in your body. And then sing without, like you're in the car and, sing like you sing in the shower almost, where you're like, I don't know, it sounds great. I'm not fighting it. And then later on, I'm like, oh shit. And it tightens up. Okay. And I think that's true of so many things. And it's become a physicalization, honestly, for me, in the middle of this just madness we're in. Right? For like, because you've been in combat situations. You've been in situations where not only were you in direct combat and those kind of situations, you were downfield far enough where shit could get real while you're sleeping, while you're working on something else. Like you didn't have to wait for, okay, it's on for that to happen, and to still maintain without breaking your psyche down and still achieve your objective, even if it's just to get out alive and complete your mission. That takes I don't think people understand the tremendous amount of like sort of psychological and spiritual discipline that you develop to do that. And it becomes necessary. Some do it automatically, I would guess, because through basic training and other stuff, it's beaten into you. That's the whole point, is to bring that down. But it takes maintenance, I would think. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people, there's like not a documentary, but it was a thing where they basically, they took photographs of troops that were, just now on their way to combat, that ended up, fighting through the Battle of Fallujah. And
right.
like the photograph of them when they were getting ready to leave, because every time you get ready to deploy to a combat zone, they actually make you take a photograph. And that photograph is your death photograph. It's that if you die, that's the photograph that's going to be on the news, and everybody has to take them and stuff. But you take that photograph before they left the States, and then you take a photograph that is 100 days in through, extensive battles and things like Fallujah and places like that. Put those pictures side by side, and you can tell that it has taken a serious toll.
Right.
It amazes me. I tell people all the time, I was like, we went outside the wire almost daily. And whenever we come back, we would beat the shit out of each other. We had a boxing ring, but it was like, this is the only way we have to kill this aggression, because, you don't want to come back and all of a sudden, punch somebody out at the, the phone center where you're standing in a line.
Right.
Because it's tough. You come in from a combat op, and then you're dealing with people that ain't never went outside the wire. That does take a toll on your body. Combat takes a toll on your body, and a lot of people don't realize this. You don't have to go outside the wire. You were talking about, something could happen in your sleep. Let me tell you something. Rockets and mortars come in at all hours of the day and night, and people were injured, people were killed. That's reality, and it does after time. These year-long combat deployments. You want to know why? Now listen, I'm not throwing those stones at the special operations guys, but they're like, I'm on my 15th tour. Well, understand that regular military, our tours are a year long, a year. Theirs are anywhere from 30 days to 90 days. But now they're hitting things every single night. They're hitting targets every single night. So when they say I got 15 tours, really it's like 15 times 3 months. That's how the tours are. And make no mistake about it, they do more in 3 months than most people do in an entire year.
Sure.
But once again, though, it weighs on them too. They have a special, people that have that ability. That's just what they do. But make no mistake about it, it takes a toll on you.
Right.
To the point where, I knew a guy that was a Delta guy, and he's completely disappeared off the face of the earth. Not because, he doesn't want to be around people, period, because of what he's experienced.
So he's in Burma catching cobras and taking people upriver like John Rambo. Um,
Pretty
yeah,
much.
yeah,
Pretty much.
yeah. I mean, there's a bunch
Yeah.
of those guys.
Pretty
There's a
much.
bunch of guys. There was a big weird impact of post Vietnam era where you had a lot of guys come back from Vietnam and never wanted to see foreign soil ever again. Ended up retiring when they got their Social Security, moving to Cambodia or Vietnam or more Cambodia and Thailand, and just living out their days there because they had become oddly, it was reminiscent of their youth, and they were like, they knew the language and they felt oddly comfortable. If you're going to feel uncomfortable, this is the second worst thing, right? And so,
Yeah.
and you don't have to explain to anybody because there's people walking around there that are in the same boat you are. Yeah.
Yeah. I would tell you that, this sounds crazy, but like, I don't miss Iraq. Iraq
Right.
just it was nothing about Iraq that I liked at all. I
Right.
mean, it was just operations after operations. And then like in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, I worked harder than I ever worked in Iraq. I mean,
Right.
every single day I was outside the wire doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But I'm going to tell you that I honestly can say that I miss Afghanistan.
Mhm.
And then that might sound kind of crazy, but if
No, I understand.
Afghanistan, if Afghanistan was not a dangerous place, I could see people all over the world making that a destination of travel or even a place to go live because it's very, very clean. They don't waste anything because it's the poorest country ever. So they don't waste nothing. When you throw a soda can out your window over there,
Hmm.
within 30 seconds, some kid has grabbed that soda can and they're cutting it up to use it for something that would
Mhm.
shock the hell out of you.
Right.
But that's the reality of life and stuff. But it was so beautiful, and there were times when we were on missions where we would be like, "Look at this, man! I cannot believe that we're in this place fighting an enemy, and this place is the most beautiful place on earth."
Right.
And I'm telling you, Afghanistan is ruggedly beautiful, but you can find yourself in Afghanistan standing between the pillars of Hercules, which is these huge mountain faces, and you're right in the middle of them. And I mean, it's just if you go look at my photographs on Facebook of Afghanistan, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Right.
Beautiful places.
Yeah, it's I feel like I've always felt attachment to the places that were the hardest on me in life, emotionally. And some places it's definitely harder to go back than others, but then there are tangential areas to it that were sweet spots, even in that toughness. The place you went to escape the difficulty you were in at the time, whether it was a beach, a coffee shop down the street, a place in the hills where you just could walk to, that was your clearing space that allows for that, and you've become nostalgic for those things. Now yeah.
Yeah, think about this though. These folks, Vietnam, post-traumatic stress disorder. You come back to the United States of America, people treat you like shit. They treated them like garbage. I mean, the only reason why we have a Veterans Administration today is because we failed the Vietnam veterans when they come home
Right.
from war. That's a fact. But I could honestly see, I could honestly see when you get to that point where you don't want to have conversations with people. You want to be left alone.
Right.
And a lot of these Vietnam veterans, man, they never got over the fact that they come home to people spitting on them and calling them baby killers and stuff.
Mhm.
And I could see them going back there and spending the rest of their lives where they're not being bothered with anybody. I can tell you that if I ever get to the point where I'm like, I don't want to be around nobody, I'm tired of people. I mean, if Afghanistan wasn't ruled by the Taliban, I could see a lot of people going back there because it's beautiful and because you're peaceful. And it's a different world. And a lot of people, they feel connected to that part of the world. And I do. I feel connected to Afghanistan. I tell people if Afghanistan wasn't a dangerous country, it would be the number one most visited country on the earth because I'm telling you, everywhere you look, it may be dangerous, but God damn, it's beautiful. It is
Right.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I
And
feel
Vietnam's one of the most beautiful. Vietnam's
Yeah.
one of the most beautiful countries on the earth.
That's right. That's and at some point, it's almost like some of these countries are fighting over who's going to own the tourist business when all this shit settles down. Which also brings us to this current setup. Now, before we proceed to that, I want to remind everybody that the major is running for the 9th district in North Carolina for the House seat there, and I just want you guys to remember that, and if you can support in any way, please do. If once we get close to the actual general, this fall, the midterms, phone banking and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to make a pilgrimage down there to do that for you because I desperately want to because you're a good man. So I just want to remind people of that before we get into the current unpleasantness. So check it out. It's ojeda4nc.com. Name spelled right there if you're new. A couple of things. Okay. So Iran's 10-point plan. This is, let me go through some of these and let's see if this sounds like something that Trump agreed to in the last minutes. Went, finally, breakthrough. We made it. They bought it. We're doing it. It's over. We can call it off and everything. We're getting what we want. They've agreed to talk and the terms are awesome. Here they are, just for the record. The U.S. came with 15. The Iranians came with 10. The 10-point plan that was agreed to was the Iranian plan. So, again, total tacoing. Let's not, and again, most of us are like, this was a bad idea to start with. Our only concern is that it's just going to create a terrorist regime, and turn it into Eritrea as opposed to Jordan or even a frenemy situation like we have with, I don't know, Turkey at times or some shit like that. So here's the one, an American guarantee of non-aggression with Iran. Okay. During a ceasefire, sure. But again, what's that worth with Donald Trump? Nothing. He tore up the last peace deal. So why would you think he'll honor that part of it? And therefore, why would you stand down your own defenses or offensive capability unless you're completely insane going, I trust Donald Trump to hold up his non-aggression? Like, no, you would start working on sea mines, land mines, air defenses, and drones nonstop. In every office building in downtown Tehran, they are converting them into drone factories as we speak. Every floor on a bank building or something that on the outside says hospital, it doesn't matter. That's where you move them to, and you crank these things out. Ask the Ukrainians, it doesn't take much. And they've already got the technology. So that's the first one, which is just sort of like blather. 2, Iran maintains control of the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, let's agree. Once again, let Trump will agree to that.
What? Yeah, and they didn't have control of it to start with. There was always a danger they could shut it down, but they weren't the toll booth operator till now. This is a huge win for them.
Huge win. And they're going to make a fortune on it.
Right.
Without a doubt. Well,
and Trump thinks he's going to cut a deal with them where we get, it's like a 80-20 or a 65-35, something like that, cut between the two. Like, he's floated this idea that, like, they'll charge part of the toll and we'll charge the other. I got news for you. The rest of that, the other side of this is the UAE and all these other countries that own that, that the peninsula that kind of sticks out, that makes it the Strait of Hormuz in the first place. Sorry, it's as much theirs as anybody else's. Also, these are technically, after your whatever, I don't know, at this point in one of these narrow areas, I don't know what the naval rules are, but you own less of that than you do like your own coast. So like on America, like I think it's like 25 miles out or something off our coasts. Every country owns theirs, right? Like Ireland and all that stuff. It's 25 miles out or something like that. In a situation like this, it's like 2 football fields or some shit like that. Like, it's not that much because it's the only passageway. That's the international understanding, right? Yep. And like, so the idea that they now control it is just insane. Like, first of all,
for them.
Well, and there's no way this is the long-term agreement is kind of my point. Like, there's no way this works out in 2 weeks, that we're splitting the strait with Iran and they're getting 60-30 out of something they didn't control before. And that's the art of the deal.
And this is the thing, though. It's just like you said, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, all these other entities there.
Right.
And somehow we're going to work out a deal where we get a cut from Iran and nobody else is going to, everybody else just has to deal with it and everybody else has to now pay. Come on, man.
Right.
Come
they've
on.
got to pay Iran for their ships getting through. And by the way, I'll show you in a minute. We'll see if the strait is open. We'll check in, shall we, with the actual, ship trackers in that area. Okay, here's the third one. Ending the regional war on all fronts, including against Iran's ally Hezbollah in Lebanon. Okay. That's like, A, Israel's never going to agree to that. B, the United States isn't going to agree to that. If we partner with the actual government of Lebanon, there's basically, the Hezbollah runs the southern part of that country like a gangster state, like the Houthis in Yemen. So they're at war with them. So if we make a deal with Lebanon for anything, it will involve us helping them fight Hezbollah, right? It's just going to. That's going to be their ask.
Yeah, but I also want to make sure people understand this. Everybody screams about Hezbollah. Everybody screams, about the sections over there. But why are they so pissed? Could it be the fact that every 6 to 8 months, Israel or we bomb the shit out of these people?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why are we hated so much in that district? Maybe it's because we've put our nose in things that shouldn't be, and we act like we can control parts of the world that do not belong to us. Right. That's why these people hate us. That's why they hate Israel. Because Israel has no problem bombing the shit out of everybody. And then once they bomb the area, they're ready to push bulldozers and push the rubble away and then call it their own.
Right.
And it's an aggression that the people over there absolutely despise. So when you say Hezbollah is the worst, well, why is Hezbollah pissed? Because Israel bombs the shit out of their countries and kills innocent women and children and gets away with it? There's a reason why Israel is freaking hated in that area.
Well, and there is no off-ramp except to be the bigger country and take the hit. That's just it. Because there's so much bad blood both directions that at some point, the only way out of this is a Jesus Marimba moment where, in the true teachings of the son of the stepson of the carpenter who walked around that area going, look, turn the other cheek. This is the only way we're going to get out of this shit. Sorry. Love your enemy. That's it. It's the only way to fix this shit. And of course, we know what happened to that guy. So let me show you something. By the way, Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz right now, according to the tepidly agreed to 10-point plan that was all their points, none of ours. None of ours. Is the Strait of Hormuz open right now? See these little red dots? Those are boats. See these little green dots and red dots? Those are boats. Does this look open to you? Does this look like... It looks like a fucking parking lot is what it looks like. And the only ships that are transitioning out, this Heilong one right here, that's a Chinese boat. All these other ones are Pakistani flagged because they're being the negotiating partner. They're the ones who started this kind of bullshit parade going, we'll help you negotiate. We'll be the mediator in this. We'll be the Oman in this circumstance, right? But that's just so they can get their boats through. I think the Iranians have only agreed to let like 10 ships through that don't pay a fee over the next 2 weeks during the ceasefire. Like oil dropped last night, the price of it because of this agreement coming out, but it hasn't changed the material reality of what's actually going on here. And look, the only ships that are moving anywhere near this part of it, and even these are sequestered over here, are all like loading up in, on Iranian oil pipelines that go to their coast right here. And then they'll be allowed out along the edge, that the NJ Earth and the Heilong and these guys over here. Those are the ones that are trickling out. And and if this IL Coast Destiny, IOLCOS Destiny, that's this boat right here, is going basically up here. They're going to pay $500 million in fucking crypto or something, protection money, and then they're going to squeak by with like a trickle of oil. It's like something like, I want to say, and I'm pulling this number out of my ass, so I apologize, like 172 boats a day or an hour go through this when it's normal. Like, it's just nuts. Like, it's just like, it's a fucking freeway. It's always going. It's a boat rush hour. It's like Panama Canal. It's like a backup just because it normally it can get clogged because it's not that big. And look, I mean, just look at these. Let me show you something. Look at these boats over here. What the hell are they talking about? These guys are parked. See these ones that have an arrow? They're moving. They're like repositioning, because they're being told to. It's like airplanes waiting to land. This one might, for like 4 minutes ago, it started moving. It's going 6 knots, 50 degrees. So it's probably just moving over close to here. It's going to park in this region and just everybody's going to go ashore and get laid because there's not. Yeah.
But that's the thing is that this conversation that you are having right now, the American people are not going to hear this unless they're listening to you right now.
Right.
Yeah. Once again, these are things whenever Donald Trump and them know that they're in trouble, they try to talk like they are claiming victory.
Right.
This is not victory. This is why your gas is going to continue shooting through the roof.
Right.
And this did not have to happen. This did not have to happen. But once again, before you label Iran, as the evil here, this is what they have. This is what they have.
Right. We gave them this.
To fight back. Yeah, You come in, you bomb a school that kills 163 little girls. You bomb a desalination center, desalination.
Yep.
Desalination. I never could pronounce that right.
To take the saline out, right? That's the kind of the easiest way to remember.
If you're bombing those things, and oh, by the way, now Donald Trump posted yesterday that he was going to make an entire civilization disappear.
Right.
You're not the good guy. You're not the good guy here. And then you want to act mad because, they're shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. This is what they have. That's their only method that they have to fight back. It's not the only method, but I mean, that's what they can do. And we didn't have to do this, but we have a bunch of buffoons that don't care.
Well, and also
they can afford it.
Psychologically can't even process it. Let's be abundantly clear too. I told you before the show that I've never felt a bigger kinship with the Iranian people in my life because we are both run by like psychotic, narcissistic fools who have dreams of ruin the world, right? That's who they are. Like, we're in the same position. Let me, this is, Amnesty International put this story out, but this was not even like questioned. The Iranian military was urging people to send their 11-year-olds to fight. And they were recruiting 11-year-old guards, like they have 11 and 12-year-olds. This is not something they're even hiding. And the thing was, the IRGC, Fars News Agency reported the organization has called on volunteers aged 12 and above. They lowered the entry rate to 12, which meant, obviously 10 and 11-year-olds who are tall were not turned away, to enroll with the military in security roles in the capital and other cities. So they got 12-year-olds with AK-47s patrolling the fucking streets. And this idea that they're this big demon that we have to worry about. If you're having to scoop up 11-year-olds to patrol your streets, you're not the boogeyman they're making you out to be. In terms of military might, certainly the regime there is terrible, and the IRGC is terrible. And again, I mean, I can only imagine that the Iranians are not stupid people, and I have to believe that there are a lot of them that are looking at what's going on in their country and they're on the receiving end of it the same way we're looking at the damage done to our country, our status, our finances, our blood and treasure, as everybody says, in this area of the world, and being disgusted by it. I guarantee they're feeling the same thing, especially when your government's going, hey, send your 12-year-olds And then they send, like, they have women standing on bridges yesterday. I would say that more than anything is why Donald Trump called it off. More than any
human chains.
Yep.
Yeah, human chains around some of the facilities. Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on, man.
Yeah.
And this is the thing here. Wouldn't it be great that if one country wants to pick a fight with the other country, maybe the friggin' leadership should meet and fight it out.
Absolutely.
Instead of dragging women and children into this, instead of doing this garbage. You got a problem with Donald Trump, with the Ayatollah? By all means, you two meet. Let's see who wins.
That's right. There used to be a similar thing. Like, if you look at least the threat of it was always present in how the Brits used to like declare wars. They'd say, we're going to meet on the hustings. We're going to have this fight tomorrow. It's going to be on that field. And everybody'd line up on either side. The army's there. And then before those guys would fight, the leaders would go out to the center. And if they could talk it out, everybody went home. If they couldn't talk it out, oftentimes they would start fighting. And the side that lost one might fight, a little better, or they might turn tail. If you killed their leader, they might just bug out. That was the idea. So a lot of times the leaders did, like, all right, you want to start this shit? We'll join in if it's really about our land. But if this is just some dicking around over turning us into property, which it sounds a lot like on both sides of this shit, then you guys work that stuff out and we'll watch, right? So here's so we that was point 3, was ending the regional war on all fronts, including Iran's ally Hezbollah in Lebanon. The fact that New York Times says this could become an eventual point of alignment is ridiculous. Like, it's like, I don't know where they got that from. Because literally, I have, what I call the yeah, but? Every article, if you read it, the 3rd or 5th paragraph is the yeah, but. So all this stuff I've been telling you so far, there is a possibility this could all be wrong and it might not work out this way because, right? It always happens. It's 3 if you're ever reading an article and there's no pictures and the pictures on the website or the newspaper aren't in color, the 3rd paragraph was always the yeah, but. In USA Today or fucking Fox News blurb or whatever, it's the 5th or the 7th because they're doing these tiny they cut the paragraphs in half because people are reading them in blurbs like tweets. So they're smaller. So it'll be the 5th or 7th. It's content-wise still the 3rd, but it's the 5th or the 7th. It always works out that way. So write down this, like this one sentence paragraph separated from the other. And here's the second one. The United States and Israel want Tehran to curb alliance of militias, blah, 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 axis of resistance, yada, yada. Here's what the yeah, but says. Israel says the current ceasefire does not apply to its operations in Lebanon. Whether the Lebanon front can be brought into a longer-term deal is an open question. So where the fuck does this could become an eventual point of alignment come from? If Israel won't agree to it, for their own imperialist ideas or their own safety, you could flip a coin on either part of this. Tactically, it's just dumb. I don't understand how you could even come to that conclusion. Yeah. That's a conclusion at the beginning of the argument when the rest of the argument. All right. Anyways, this is like, it's like they cleared this shit. Like, half of this is what Hegseth wants to read. I almost feel like they know Trump and his crowd won't read past one line or paragraph. So they front load it with like, this could work. And then right afterwards, they're like, yeah, it's not gonna fucking work. Like, they're all written this way. It's so stupid. Okay. So here's the next one. Withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from all bases and positions in the region. Never fucking happen. What are you, nuts? Like, no, like every Sunni nation and Israel would be like, Iran would just go, well, they're gone, so let's just build our shit up and kill and the religious war is on. Let's just call it that. Or like, what are you talking about? Like, how does that and how are you going to police the strait and get our 30% cut if you don't have any ships in the region? You have a gentleman's handshake agreement. You're going to meet at Goldman Sachs once a year. Like, what the hell? U.S. forces. U.S. forces maintain bases across Gulf Arab states, Israel and Iraq. It is difficult to conceive of. Yes, I love this. It is difficult to conceive of a scenario in which the U.S. would accept this. Yeah, no shit. And that's deal point 4. We're early on. We're not even. We're still in the top 5. So there's no way they didn't put this one at the end. Like, if we can get it right. All right. Number 5, reparations to Iran for war damages. Even if it were justified, even if it were possible to bring back the dead children, like, who in the hell thinks that, Donald Trump is going to pay reparations to Iran? And then imagine, like, the maggots and the America First crowd, if we're blowing up countries and then paying to rebuild them. Well, it sounds like the old communism argument that they make, like you pay a guy to dig a hole and pay another guy to fill it, right? That's what they always, they always call communism. That's exactly what this is. It's just with murder. Like, I got to tell you, like, the idea that there's a deal here is just nuts.
Yeah, the fact that this is this is even being discussed.
Right.
It's crazy.
If it is, that's the other thing. Like, Trump is, I guess, just assuming that, like, certainly Laura Ingraham and, Laura and fucking Sean Hannity and that crowd are not going to read these out on the show.
No.
They're not going to point these out. And they're going to shit on the New York Times, and he'll call it the failing New York Times for printing it. The Farsi version of this one is what they put out. This is what the Fars agency put on their, out. Like, Trump's edited version is not what they agreed to and is not what we're talking about. And there's so many non-starters in this. Now check out number 6. Acceptance of Iran's right to nuclear enrichment. What?
And Donald Trump wants to gripe about killing the agreement between Obama and them?
Right.
Yeah. This path? Yeah, okay.
That's what I mean. Like, Obama's deal didn't even have this. They didn't have the right to do this. It's all right. This, and at least they start out. This is diametrically opposed to Trump's. They call him Mr. Trump, which I think is a dig. They figure he stopped reading 3 paragraphs ago. So they're just calling him Mr. Trump from most recent statements in which he has again called for zero enrichment of uranium. Some regional diplomats have aimed to soften U.S. demands, suggesting Tehran could instead agree not to actively conduct enrichment or to limit enrichment to a symbolic amount to the lowest threshold for civilian purposes. It remains unclear whether Washington would accept that. It's also, how could you prove it, especially if they still have deep underground facilities? Again, if they're getting the material even in the country, even if they don't do it, this is the problem. Even if they don't do it, you can pretend they are and attack them anytime you want.
And that's exactly what will happen.
Yes.
That's exactly what will happen with this region. The United States, with Israel, that's what will happen.
7.
Look, that's why we are here.
Yeah.
They said 6 months ago that we bombed them into the Stone
obliteration,
Age.
right?
And then now he says, Jared Kushner
and Steve Witkoff.
Miller,
yeah,
Steve Witkoff and a couple others told him, you didn't listen to your military intelligence. You just believed what Jared Kushner had to say. So that's why we are where we are, folks.
And then, lifting all secondary sanctions on Iran. Let me explain something to anybody in the maggot sphere who might stumble across this in a drunken stupor, accidentally clicking in the wrong area of YouTube at some point in the near future, or Facebook or some nonsense. Hit that like, share the show. Share it with the maggot in your life. This will annoy them. This would give them a better deal than Russia, China, like any country in the world we have any sanctions against at all. It would arguably give them a better position than the countries we are tariffing. Like, they would be because we're not buying the stuff from them. You're not allowed to buy it here. So they'll have a freer ability to sell around the world than anywhere else. And he's saying if anybody sells them military stuff, we're going to hit them with a 50% tariff or whatever, which, again, for what, 150 days and that kind of thing. And then he has to go back to Congress. That's what he's learned. But in this particular case, a 2-stroke engine can be used in a scooter and a Shahed drone. That's largely the kind of shit they buy. The chips that are in modern toys can be repurposed. That's why fucking, what's her name? His original, I think, Department of Education head last term was busted selling copiers to Iran. And everybody's like, it's just copiers. It's, you know, it's just selling a bunch of Xerox copiers. Those fucking things are computers. And you can break those things down and take the motherboard out of that goddamn thing, especially the big and like impressive office ones. You can run NASA off one of those things. You know, we always hear about like you got more shit in your phone than you got in, you know, than they had doing the Apollo mission or sending satellites or tracking rockets. That's the kind of gear that's in a photocopier. That's why the sanctions get, you know, if you really look at them, the kind of gear that gets sent to these places, why there's a moratorium on office equipment in some cases, because the stuff we take for granted, your average Dell computer can be turned into the hub of a fucking hacking empire pretty easily. So, you know, and the variety of them is how you build their anti-aircraft, you know, systems are basically built on all those fucking Betsy DeVos, that's what it was. Betsy DeVos sold fucking these copiers. Those copiers got repurposed and turned into the anti-aircraft shit that we're now having to bomb.
And I'm going to tell you too, you know, they're taking, you know, regular everyday items, creating capabilities that, you know, you talk about, you know, we're going to spend $4 million on a rocket to take out a $40 drone.
Right.
They will bankrupt us like that. And make no mistake about it. They're probably filling places with these drones because they know how deadly they are. I mean, what we saw in Ukraine with the and this is pretty much ground zero for this. I mean, now we see the capabilities. They're literally kicking Russia's butt by using just cheap drones. And that's going to happen to us in the Middle East.
That's right. They have, and these are ones that you can 3D print. And again, 3D printers aren't on aren't on the sanction thing. And let me tell you something. If you tried to stop them from having 3D printers, for example, you know what a 3D printer is? It's two regular printers missing one part because you got two axes, right? This way and this way. A 3D printer adds one axis. That's it. And instead of printing ink, it prints plastic. And so it makes little dots, and then it moves up and makes another little series of dots on top of it, or draws lines, and then it just stacks those lines. So if you took like ink and you just thicken, you ever get a really like heavy color printer, and the paper feels like hard, almost like cardstock because the picture's so thick. Okay, that's because there's red and then blue and then cyan and then black, and you know that's how they make the thing because they layer it. It's the same thing. It's just flat layered by a 2D thing. You add one axis to that, you're printing guns, you're printing rockets. And you're definitely printing drones. That's how they do it. Okay, so here's this is where we get into like, I don't know what the fuck this has got to be hair on the knuckles. I don't know if you know that, like Michelangelo did a lot of portraits of royalty back in the day. They wanted, it was a big thing to have Michelangelo do your portrait because they kept changing it because, you know, you had a bunch of Trumpies with their big, like, sagging nunts and their weird hairlines and stuff. And they were embarrassed because he would do these photorealistic paintings of them. And he nailed it. And they're like, I don't look like that. Fix my chin. Fix my ears. My ears don't match. And I'm like, your ears don't match, asshole. Like, yeah, but fix it. So what he would do is he'd put extra hair on the knuckles. Too much. And they would fixate so much on the hair on the knuckles on their hands that they'd go, I love it. I love it. Can you take a little hair off? They'd look at their hand like, can you take a little of the hair off the knuckles? Because it really wasn't there. And he'd go, oh, yeah, I can do that. And that would be the one change. Like they would just put a little hair on the knuckles, give them something they can throw out and think they did something, and they won't change the shit you want to stay, right? This is hair on the knuckles right here. Number 9, termination of all resolutions against Iran by the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency. Well, first of all, how the shit, what are you going to start from scratch and not look in the places you looked before? If they're going to police whether you have this stuff, if the deal is made, it's stupid. Like, and we and I guess our allies and other people, I don't know if we're going to agree to let China do it, are going to oversee IAEA people going into the country and securing these these sites where the nuclear dust is. You know, the new yellow cake is Trump, saying nuclear dust. So, and then 10, termination of all United Nations Security Council resolutions against Iran. Like, there have been several UN resolutions against Iran, particularly on the issue of nuclear proliferation. Last October, they reimposed sanctions on Iran, saying Iran was in breach of the 2015 deal to limit Iran's nuclear enrichment because we broke the deal, but the rest of Europe was under the impression that it was still with them because the JCPOA included a bunch of countries, not just us. And they were like, they're still complying as far as we can tell. That it's the U.S. that thinks they aren't. So they put sanctions back on because they thought because Trump tore up the deal. And that meant, well, if you tore up the deal, then we're not letting anybody in to inspect. And everybody else who was still on the deal was like, let us back in so we can just keep this going. We want a peaceful resolution to this. But they obviously didn't trust us after the tearing up of it. And they, it was, they were obviously scarred about making a new deal anytime soon, as you would. And then Trump gets back in. It's like, get out of here. Like, yeah. So, and then Washington could try to influence its allies to do this. But again, it would likely require a comprehensive agreement with Iran. This is not going to happen. Like,
yeah, even if Donald Trump is stupid enough to say yay, there's no way Israel will ever agree to any of that right there. There's no way.
They can't. They can't.
No, they can't.
They will die. Like, it's like, especially after you pick this fight. There's an argument that before all this shit started, Israel could have gone, look, we're not getting into a bigger fight with these guys. If you guys want to go in there, we're not going to go in. If the U.S. wants to bomb these sites, they got plenty of bombs and plenty of airplanes, and you guys knock yourself out. But we're not going to put a target on our back and join in this shit. But they saw an opportunity, I think, tactically and strategically, beyond even the Netanyahu crowd, that like Trump's going to go in. So we're going to go in partnership with him because that means America will continue to have our back because they got us into this shit, will be the argument in the Knesset. And so, now they're in for a penny, in for a pound. They're stuck. Right? They can't just walk away like it never fucking happened. And again, they're still surrounded by Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis in the Red Sea. Other factions like the Islamic State in Gaza. Jesus.
Yeah. And this didn't do anything but shove a stick in a hornet's nest.
Right.
That's what this has done. And,
yeah.
And this isn't something that Donald Trump's going to say, okay, we're done, guys. Don't work like that. You have bombed civilian structures. These are war crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, you got Pete Hegseth saying the things that literally are the words of a madman, tyrant, dictator.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, these people are going to have to be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to be held.
Yes, and they only will if Democrats get control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency with a resounding enough number where they don't the intransigence of the Republican Party will not be an impediment. That's the only way. It is the only way. Period. We saw it last time. Joe Biden was ice skating uphill, trying to get any of this stuff done. And people can bitch about Merrick Garland all they want, but the reality is it was the Senate and the Republicans in the Senate that kept Donald Trump from being removed from office the very first time, which would have kept him from being able to run again without all the other shit. And they knew he was guilty. Mitch McConnell came out and said he was guilty and all this. But, for the sake of the country, and they never thought he'd come back or try to come back or any of this shit, which is just naive horseshit. So obviously the response to this has been pretty brutal in some quarters. Simon Rosenberg wrote, Trump is a titanic fuck up and will be known as such for all time. There is no possibility of redemption from this. The 10-point ceasefire plan included the phrase acceptance of enrichment in his nuclear program. Like, it was missing in the English version shared by Iranian diplomats to journalists. That's why, New York Times and others were posting the one that was actually in, they just translated it directly from what the Fars news agency showed on the air. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe like what you just said. Trump is a titanic F up. When the lack of courage that we are seeing right now in our country,
mm-hmm.
the lack of courage, you got general officers that are choosing to retire versus take a stand. And I got it. You know what? You're going to take a stand. They're liable to send you out tomorrow. But at the end of the day, you know what? Stand up and fight for your country.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're a military officer, you're a general officer, and you know you're not going to be a 5-star general. We don't have those anymore. You've
Right.
already climbed to the top. But stand up and fight for our military. Because I mean, look, we saw this. They had a campaign rally on Fort Bragg, North Carolina,
Mhm.
that was nothing more than a daggone MAGA rally. They told all the soldiers, if you don't like Donald Trump, you don't have to go, but everybody wants to go, you can go. And they got on the stage and they started talking shit about Democrats and making the soldiers chant shit.
Mhm.
And that right there, it's against the Hatch Act. It's against, there's so
Yeah.
much that was there. It's illegal to do things like that. And the leadership on Fort Bragg, nobody pushed back. You know, and I mean, people don't realize is they actually set up a merchandise station, and they actually were selling white privilege cards,
Right.
and soldiers buying that garbage.
Ugh.
You know, this is the kind of stuff. You know, when are we going to start seeing some damn courage from our people? You know, you got journalists that are out there that are showing courage, opposing and writing against this stuff, but our leaders are absolute cowards. And the Republican Party is the worst. The Republican Party is literally almost 50. It's like 51-49. That's the percentage. And
Yep.
all we need is 1 or 2 Republicans to show a little courage, but they won't. They
Well,
won't.
Again, I, you know me, I'm big on perspective. You know, sometimes it's good to see through the eyes of your opponent to understand where they're coming from. And I gotta say, one of the things that MAGA has been selling is this idea that Donald Trump is different from everybody else. He's a businessman. He came from the outside. He's not a politician. He speaks, like he talks like me, in shit grammar, all that kind of stuff. Like everything they sell about him. But in reality, he's absolutely typical of Republican presidents, especially over the last 2 decades. He's a natural carry-on from the plan of PNAC in the mid-90s. He's absolutely carrying it out. His strikes in Syria and Iraq around ISIS and using that as effectively as cover is another move down the field of the PNAC 7 country plan. And Iran is the crown jewel of that. And he won't bother with the other ones that are small potatoes like Sudan that was on the list. And it's in turmoil anyway. So the way you let that fall is you help stir it up and then you stand back. And that's exactly what he did. So Sudan, again, the death toll in Sudan eclipses what's happened in Gaza. It actually eclipses what's happened, the same amount of protesters he's saying they killed their own people, blah, blah, blah. The rapid strike force in Sudan killed that many people in a weekend. Men, women, and children. Like horrible war crimes going on. We don't care because that's on the list of countries that we want to fail. We want to bring down the leadership. So if they're in the middle of the civil war, it's that Napoleonic thing that if your enemy is fucking up, don't interrupt him is essentially the idea. And Democrats have taken a little bit of that. In our last few minutes, one of the things that the stories that is kind of reassuring in all this is that part of why Trump tacoed is because we did have leadership inside. There was a big potential Pentagon walkout that might have happened if he had ordered this strike, and they had told him about it. And Hegseth had heard it from those guys that if you ask us to drop a tactical nuke, which is, we sent B-2 bombers again. And the idea is that some people believe that Trump had some tactical nukes in there because he wanted to be the first guy to do it. And if it was required, he wanted people to, I'm a mad dog. I'm crazy. He shits on John Bolton, but he's basically using the exact same methodology that Bolton used, which is just be insane and hope they blink because they think you're nuts enough to do it, right? Yeah. He even said that about why he brought Bolton into the fucking room. He's an idiot and he's stupid, but he's crazy. But if he stood there, people thought, oh, I'm afraid he's going to kill us all. So Trump doesn't have any more. He's got to do himself. Yep.
Yeah, Donald Trump, imagine how Donald Trump preyed on young kids on Epstein's Island.
Right.
And Mar-a-Lago and any place, Trump Tower and any property of Epstein, because he felt that he had the power to do that and get away with it. And I'm going to tell you, that's exactly how he was. That was, he hurt those kids.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's no different. Now he's the president of the United States. He's got all this power. But make no mistake about it. He also was recently heard saying that that the wall, between Mexico and the United States, that he actually wanted to put spikes on it.
Right.
So that people could be literally, hung from those spikes and like that's. So he says, "Oh, I know how to stop. We'll hang people, do like a friggin' Vlad the Impaler, and that'll stop people from wanting to come into the United States." Donald Trump having the ability to use a nuclear weapon, this is something that he literally probably masturbates to. It's I can do this. He just wants to hurt people, and he wants no accountability for that. And we're still allowing the guy who used to rape children to literally destroy our country.
Right. Well, hey, man, I'll tell you where we came from. We had, as much as the Republicans lined up behind this, we had 6 million Democrats and Dem-leaning independents stand down in the last election because shrug. And that's where we are. And that's our job, is to infuse that meaning back into it. And by the way, I doubt Trump has the capacity for masturbation at this point.
It was reluctantly aroused. It was hard to get it aroused, and it is hard to get it aroused, but we got it aroused.
So I don't think he can do that.
How did you find that? How did you find that? I just stopped talking 30 seconds ago.
I immediately went there. God. So yeah, that was, it's not as on the nose as, where is it? This one would take me a second more. Hold on.
Not good.
It was, he's beat up. I'm gonna find it. This is the issue that he has, I think, on the regular. Where is he? Son of a bitch! You caught me off guard on that because I really wanted to.
So we're going to get it going to a level that nobody can ever turn course on us. Nobody can ever change.
Here it is.
I had a beat off.
There it is.
I had a beat off.
Yeah, that's there you go.
I like wood.
I had a beat
I
off.
hope he watches your show.
Oh, yeah, me too. I know people in the administration do. I have gotten word back that they go, "Oh, you," which is great. I think I was still in the saved shows on the browsers in the Oval from when Biden left. But so this is important because I want people to know that, in our last few minutes together, I also want to remind everybody, ojedifornc.com. Please go contribute, even just give a thumbs up, share socials, those kind of thing. Anything you can do is helpful. If you don't have money to do it, activity will do it. And as we get closer to the election, those kind of things will become increasingly important. Yes, go ahead.
I want to say something here. Obviously, everybody needs to think about that. We recently had an election where I think we flipped like 30 seats from red to blue. And there were 0 seats that were flipped from blue to red.
Mm-hmm.
The people in Texas, like 200,000 more Democrats voted than Republicans in this last race. I am going to tell you that this is our time. This is our time. And the Republicans, they want to try to turn out the vote, but it's not easy for them to be able to turn out the vote when everything is not popular. When these poor MAGA people can no longer afford to drive their Ford F-1050 pickup trucks with the F Joe Biden flags on it because they can't afford to put gas in their truck. People are waking up, and I'm going to tell you, this is the time. We cannot just flip a few seats from red to blue. We can take it all back.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you, in North
by
Carolina,
a good margin.
We got Roy Cooper on the head of the ballot in North Carolina, and he is the most loved politician. He's a 2-time governor in North Carolina. Everybody loves him. Beneath him is Justice Anita Earls. And we are starting to wake up and realize that our courts are absolutely important. And everybody who hears my voice right now needs to understand that. You need to start paying attention to these judges running for office, and you need to start realizing that we've got to take our courts back. Because one of the reasons why we have a madman in the Oval Office is because the Supreme Court has given him way too much friggin' room to just shit all over everybody. We got to take our courts back. But right beneath those two races, you're going to see my race. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm running against the chair of the NRCC. I'm running against the guy who is the one who works, raises money from billionaires and corporations to try to keep Republicans in power. And I'm going to tell you, if I can beat this guy, and I really do believe we have a pathway. This was an R plus 22 race. Now it's like an R plus 7. And I'm going to tell you right now, I can win an R plus 7. Unaffiliated voters outnumber Democrats in North Carolina. Republicans only outnumber unaffiliated by like a couple thousand votes. But let me tell you something. Unaffiliated shows up to the polls, we win. I knocked on 35 unaffiliated doors one day. 30 of them open, and 100% of those 30 doors said, we're following your race and we're backing you.
That's
great. I'm telling you, we're going to get everybody to the polls. If the Republicans want to sleep in, by all means, you ain't going to be able to vote for Donald Trump, so keep your ass at home and sleep. But if you're a Democrat, if you're an independent, if you're unaffiliated, take your ass to the polls, because we got to take this back, because we've got a buffoon in the Oval Office who is literally trying to commit us to World War III, and that shit needs to stop. Agreed.
Hoorah. Also, I think we're at World War 4.2 right now. It's hard to keep track at this point, but I want to remind everybody, JenniferNC.com. One last thing. So in this thing, where this guy, here, where the Pentagon, Hegseth has been trying to get rid of Dan Driscoll, because Dan Driscoll is the Army Secretary, and he is not going to launch nuclear weapons. He's not going to be okay with troops on the ground, boots on the ground in Iran without congressional approval, that there's this shit forward. And he's been pushing back. And apparently there was not only a big fight between him and Hegseth, which Hegseth would lose badly, but Vance apparently had to step in and be like the milquetoast peacemaker in the middle of this. And Driscoll's been in Kyiv, which gets us to Philip Bittner, who'll be joining us in just a minute. But Hegseth can't fire him. He can't fire Driscoll. So he's been trying to fire everybody underneath him. Well, everybody else is like, you do this shit. If you do this big bombing on Tuesday, like he says, if he orders them to do this, we're walking out, all of us. This will be, a midnight massacre of our own making. And that, almost more than anything else, called Trump's bluff.
Yeah. Yeah. And we need more of that.
Yep.
We need for the Pentagon to take a stand and let Donald Trump know that we're tired of this daggone wannabe. I am more qualified to be the Secretary of Defense than Pete Hegseth ever will be.
Yeah.
Pete Hegseth is a failed National Guardsman that got kicked to the curb. He's never commanded the company. He's never went through the advanced course. He's never went through the Command General Staff College. The guy is absolutely trash. And for us to sit and allow him to run people like this general off, run him off. This guy here, let me tell you something. This is what a real badass looks like. This is a guy that spent years in the Ranger battalions. He's commanded Rangers. He's commanded paratroopers. This guy right here is absolutely a badass.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, to sit and watch and realize that this guy right here was kicked to the curb.
Right.
You look at General Brown, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They fired him because of the color of his skin. And don't let anybody ever tell you anything differently. The next day, they fired the woman that was leading the Coast Guard. It was the first female admiral to lead the Coast Guard, and they fired her because of that. Recently, Pete Hegseth got into a pissing contest because he was not wanting to allow 2 general officers of color to be promoted. They worked there. Let me tell you something. You want to know about people? You want to know what people of color have to do? They have to overcome everything to make it to that level. When you see a general officer that's wearing 2 stars and they're a person of color, you better believe that they had to jump through every hoop, that they were not given any free pass on anything. They had to do it. And those are the people that are being attacked right now.
That's
we
right.
are allowing Pete Hegseth to erase the continuity of our friggin' military, and that is unacceptable.
Well, and again, this serves our adversaries' goals beyond it being bigoted and grotesque and, and every, ethical, moral, and psychological and spiritual failure of Pete Hegseth, who, by the way, is at every one of these like pressers acting as basically a slow talking Fox News host and all these things. He's reading out these little like George Bush like phrases, and at the same time, he's basically the press secretary for what Trump wants to do with the military. He's just over, Trump is running this directly, but Hegseth is trying to make himself look worthy of the job by kicking out everybody who's worthwhile underneath him and being racist, because that's where that's his sweet spot in his life. But by removing those people for racist and sexist reasons, he's also undermining our readiness, because these people have trained very hard. They have worked their way into these positions. They are valuable members, and our adversaries will hope that he creates a brain drain specifically by doing this. His racism is a wind-up toy, and the key in his back is being turned by Russia, China, and even Iran, ironically, in this circumstance.
Yep, you are spot on right. Hey, I need you to do me a favor too. I need you to send me Phil Ittner's email, because
you got it.
We're getting ready to redo Ojeda Live in a way that's
great,
more bringing people in terms of political stuff. But I absolutely would love. I would love to have him on. I'd love to have you on.
I'm for it.
We're going to sit down. We're going to start putting this stuff together, man. But yeah, man.
Anything we can do.
I really want this.
Yeah, Andrea will get you that right away. Yeah.
Awesome. When I win this, I'm going to tell you, when I win this, I'm going to Ukraine. I'm going to tell you, when I win this, the first damn thing we got going to Ukraine, I'm going to be on it.
That's great. So, awesome. Well, thank you, brother, for being, have a great day campaigning and working your ass off. I appreciate you, and I will see you again very soon.
Brother, I love this show. I love this show. I love the hard work that you put into making these shows the way that you do. This is an education, and everybody out there that's watching this, you need to share this video and convince other people to follow this, because this is how we take back our country. We don't silence the people that are speaking against this garbage. We elevate their voices.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Major. All right, cheers. There he goes. And let me bring in Philip Ittner, who's waiting in the wings. Into this real quick. Couple of little pieces of housekeeping stuff. Yep. Yeah, I hear you now. Give me 1 second, and hit the like, everybody. Share the show if you would. Patreon.com/HalSparks. There's the Venmo if you feel like supporting the show. Candy has just been great in giving out memberships and all that kind of stuff. So I want to say another thank you for all of her help as well. I have these moments where when people watch the show live, we get the super chats, and sometimes we'll get a Venmo or something like that. But then other people watch it later in the day, and I forget about that because I'm either, singing, writing, watching stuff, or taking care of my girl who's going through her current unpleasantness. And in that, occasionally my wrist will vibrate, and I'll, it'll notify me that somebody has, Venmo'd in support of the show, $2, $5, whatever it is. And it lately, especially, it's just been bringing a tear to my eye, because it's, I so appreciate it. And I'm so grateful that you guys you give the greatest gift in the world, which is your eyeballs and your ear holes. And I don't take that for granted. So beyond that, it's funny how, it just kind of punches you from the side. It's an odd thing. Anyways, let me bring in Philip Ittner, who's been waiting patiently. Phil, thanks for joining us again, live from Kyiv. He's got power, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We were talking in the first base, and we'll talk about Ukraine and what's going on there right now in a moment. But you've seen some of the stuff, I would presume, about this alleged last minute deal and this 2-week ceasefire and all this stuff. And it reeks of the same bullshit from Russia. Only, I guess weaker, if that's a thing, right? So
in what sense?
Because it's like, because Russia will go like, we'll do a ceasefire of this, and this, and they obviously don't mean it, and they're obviously not going to do it. Trump is bending over in this circumstance, fairly obviously. right? And
Yeah, I see the similarity you're making. I would I agree with the similarity,
mm,
but I
mhm,
think there is a difference in the sense that Russia does this as a delaying tactic
right,
because they don't want to stop fighting.
which is what Iran is
I
doing. I
think
would argue, sort of.
which
Yeah, yeah,
might exactly be what Iran is doing. You're right.
right,
Yeah, but when it comes to Trump, I think he genuinely does want to start. I mean, I think he wants an exit strategy to get the hell out.
hmm
Um, but you're right. He might be dealing with a disingenuous other party in the form of Iran.
right,
Um, but here in this conflict, I mean, for sure, it's always a delaying tactic for the Russians. It's
yeah,
always a because they can't, and we've talked about this many times. I mean, they can't keep going, but they can't stop, and
right,
so they buy for time with this kind of like meet this condition and we'll do that, or let's have meetings in another round in Istanbul, or this, that, or the other thing. Um, we'll have a ceasefire and then they'll break it immediately. The Russians don't want to stop fighting because they can't.
right,
Because if they stop fighting, it is a catastrophic defeat for them.
yeah,
Um, maybe that's why Iran doesn't. You
hmm
might have a point there that Iran doesn't want to stop either because the U.S. can't win this, and it'll be a humiliating defeat for the
right,
United States when eventually, because eventually they're going to have to stop fighting. Iran might find it advantageous right now, but medium to long term, eventually they're gonna want to stop. But they're gonna want to make it clear that um, they were the ones that made Washington dance to their tune,
yes,
and it'll be obvious. It's just
yeah. Well,
the Tuesday ultimatum, and then going back on it, and it's just
it's stupid, right? It's
they've
insane,
already
and
lost. They've already
it's also
lost.
like you've got two groups that are basically like their fallback is declare victory and go home. Is both the Iranian, the current Iranian regime and Trump's answer to this, with both of the idea that you're going to, build up and start this again at a date of your choosing in the future. And right now, as
Mm,
I showed before on, when the major was on, the strait is still closed and it will remain closed over the next couple of weeks, because that's what Iran agreed to. So and again, everywhere I've looked, there's a bunch of people who are like, if it stays closed for another 2 weeks, global depression, right? Well, this 2 week punt is that
yeah.
situation. They're not going to fully open it. They haven't anyways. And if people start bum rushing through there, the Iranians are going to want to get, prove that they have control over it or that was their agreement point. So do they fire on ships that are unfriendly, specifically Saudi or UAE ones, just, for shits and giggles? Do their own, side hustle groups in the IRGC that aren't getting direct messages? There's, no kids running messages or carrier pigeons or fucking paper airplanes getting them like, hey, knock it off messages. If they're not getting that, why would they stop? They're like, hey, there's a boat going through, hit it. Like, that's all they know right now. If they don't have access to that, and they may have been told beforehand, don't believe what you see on TV, we're bullshitting, or believe everything as long as they use this particular word. We can't know, and that's the situation we're in. I want to show a couple of things about specifically around Ukraine in this, just to catch up where this is still an ongoing thing. Zelensky said that the offer of a ceasefire carried through the Easter weekend with Russia and is still sitting there, just on the table. And I got to say, the Russians aren't gonna take it at all. Like, it's just silly. Like it's just. But the reason Zelensky keeps doing it is because it's a great way to. I think they're sincere to some degree that that ultimately, if there's a ceasefire and then ultimately negotiation, the idea is like, hey, let's just go back to 91 border and you guys get the fuck out of here. That would be good. And because we're going to have European peacekeepers in here. And if you think you're going to start these little green men dust ups or own the Donbass in its entirety, even though you haven't taken it, it's insane. Like, so over the last little bit, and I'm curious what you think about this. The last ferry in the Kerch Strait supplying Russian forces in Crimea has been disabled, which sounds like a precursor to the bridge. It sounds like it might be the only part of this escalation that is they want this to be a last ditch effort. But after Trump threatened to blow up all the bridges in Iran, if Zelensky blows up the Kerch Bridge, what's Trump going to say about it? They shouldn't have done that. They should have done peace or whatever. Like, we offered them a ceasefire. Right. They didn't do it. We followed your plan, buddy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And also the Ukrainians can make the argument that the Kerch Strait Bridge is a military target.
That's all it is. Military conduit at this point, right?
It's at this point, it is. I mean, there's civilian traffic that goes across it.
Which is on purpose.
A lot of Russians have summer homes. As a matter of fact, I saw one of their primary kind of vacation spots, Theodosia, got hit today, which I'm sure is going to cause consternation for a lot of Russian. What there is of the middle class, because that's where their summer homes are. But that bridge is coming down.
Right.
That bridge will come down at a time of Ukraine's choosing. My gut is that they want to get closer to the Sea of Azov. The Ukrainians are making advances in Zaporizhia Oblast. In particular, I think they're also making some advances in Kherson, but it's really Zaporizhia where they're. And now Zaporizhia is an oblast that has part of the coastline for the Sea of Azov, which would cut off their land bridge. So if the Ukrainians can get to a position where they can either break through and get to the sea, or they can make the land bridge untenable because it comes under artillery fire, drone fire. Covert teams can go in there and put IEDs in, and if they can cut off the land bridge, I think we start to seriously look at taking down the Kerch Strait Bridge, because then you cut off Crimea, and if you cut off Crimea,
you box it in, right?
Yeah, you box it in, and it's devastating for Russia. And it's just like the Straits of Hormuz. If you can control Crimea, you control the Black Sea, which means no oil tankers will be coming from the eastern shore of the Black Sea, which is Russian territory. Not that there really are right now, but it would.
It would eliminate that possibility in the future.
Well, a huge factor in this entire war is control of the Black Sea, is dominance over the Black Sea.
Right.
And the best way to have dominance over the Black Sea is to own Crimea. It's not the only way, but it is historically the most strategically important, because it juts out into the Black Sea. So you can attack east and west and even south if you want to from Crimea, which is why they based their Black Sea fleet there before the Ukrainians forced them to withdraw to the eastern shores of the sea. So, there are some similarities with controlling waterways. I mean, so much we don't talk about this as much as we really should, but so much of what motivates geopolitical power and exertion of geopolitical power is control of water. And waterways and trade and export, import, all that kind of stuff. So, just like maybe the Straits of Hormuz is this major factor in that conflict down there, it's undoubtable that the control of the Black Sea is an important part of this conflict. And right now, as we mentioned earlier, if this war ends right now, even if let's say it doesn't go back to 91 borders, let's say that
It freezes
somehow
where it is.
Moscow,
Right.
yeah, Moscow negotiates that, okay, we're gonna take Luhansk and we're gonna take Donetsk City. We may not take the entire provinces, but we'll take those. They've been under Russian control for 10 years already, and I've heard widespread discussion within Ukraine of like, those guys are already lost. They've been brainwashed for 10 years. They're more Russian than they are Ukrainian. That is not the predominant attitude, but there's a sizable percentage of
Sure.
the country that's like, if that ends the war,
The practical
those
and
guys have been
tactical.
occupied. Yeah, those guys have been occupied so long that they're practically brainwashed into being Russians anyhow. So
Mhm.
let it go. But if that's the way the chips, if that's the way the things fell at the
Mhm.
end of this conflict, this will have been the most disastrous war that Russia is engaged in.
Yeah, ever.
Really, probably in the history of its entire
Yeah.
nation. Far worse than the Russo-Japanese War, far worse than the defeats in World War One. This is
Mhm.
losing Crimea, losing Ukraine. It changes everything about their sense of identity and who they are, and
Mhm.
and what is Russia without being an empire.
Yeah,
We
and it
we often
also
forget because we don't like empire. Russians love empire.
right.
We hate empire,
Yep.
especially when we engage in it.
Right.
That's my old saying. When we engage in empire, our own people are the first ones to be like, no, we don't want that.
Right.
People need to understand that is not that's not a status quo.
I gotta say,
That is a distinctly American thing. The Russians love
right.
empire. They
Yeah.
love being an empire. They crave being an empire. So you have to look at it through that mentality. And if they lose Ukraine, they're no longer an empire. So when they look in the mirror, who are they? And it's going to
Mhm.
be a huge change in
Right.
their sense of self and their identity.
So to that point, I think part of the reaction from a lot of Americans is like Trump saying we should keep the oil and these kind of things. It just sounds like he wants to be more like Putin and more like Xi and more like Kim Jong Un, and that's it's embarrassing and gross, but it's not going to happen because it is one of the areas where to maintain something like that, you're going to have to go to Congress, and they're not going to be in on it. And and he would have to create kind of he'd have to box Congress in so much so that we'd have to build a base outside of Tehran, like the Green Zone in Iraq. And I just don't think he has the capability of doing that. And Russia felt like it was going to do that in Ukraine, both through their sock puppets they initially had in, which again, all the fucking, Muscovites in our media over here from, Scott Ritter to, like all those crowd, Jimmy Dore and all that crowd, this whole coup in, Euromaidan was a coup against the elected government as opposed to them ousting a sock puppet and picking their own leaders. But on a practical note, like, I think you're right. I just don't see there's a way that Russia, says, we're ending this war we started with a fucking football field worth of land that we didn't have and a million dead. And then all those guys, like you've talked about, coming home with no pension, alcoholics with PTSD, and many of them people who bought their way out of prison for rape and murder, leaving the front lines and going home to what? Kill everybody else they missed the first time? Continue their serial raping spree? It's insane, right? So one of the reasons he can't call this off is because the tide of fucking maniacs that are going to come home.
Yeah. To no jobs.
Right.
To cities that have been towns and cities that have been drained to the very last drop of blood and productivity that they can muster for a war effort that will not be able to transition back to civilian industry anytime soon.
Right.
And I also don't care. You know, a lot of people are making a lot of noise about this. Well, we're lifting sanctions on Russia. We're letting them sell oil. I'm not.
Hmm.
I'm not thrilled about that, obviously.
Right.
But it's too late. I think it's too late.
I agree.
I think the Russians are
Yeah.
screwed no
Well,
matter what they do.
the Economist
Yeah,
agrees with you.
yeah.
This is from their thing. Let me blow it up a little bit so people can see it. Russia's economy has entered the death zone. Alexandra Prokopenko wonders how much longer it can go on metabolizing its own muscle tissue, which is exactly
Mhm.
it. And I don't have a subscription, so we don't have to read past this. But this is the this is the general thinking. This is from the Jamestown Institute. Russian economy collapsing while officials enrich themselves. This has been going on for a long goddamn time. So this isn't even surprising, but it's getting worse in the interim to this. Now, that said, I want to show you something that we're in terms of the bridge thing we were talking about a moment ago, which is this. I think this is a dry run. So for those that don't know, the Ukrainians destroyed the Konkivsky Bridge through 60 days of drone explosions. Now, it wasn't a constant barrage of drone bombs for 60 days that took it down. It's that it took them 60 days to basically break a couple of places and then find the sweet spot and then really hit them. So it was a program like the one where they sent trucks into Russia and the drones came out of the top and all that kind of stuff, which by the way, there are still, I believe, trucks parked around Moscow with those kind of drones in them with a ripcord ready to be pulled.
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Right, no question. Ukrainian forces destroyed a Russian-held bridge over the Dnipro after a 60-day drone campaign using British Malloy T-150s, flying 30 missions and delivering 1.5 tons of explosives in a first-of-its-kind operation. So I think this was the dry run for how you take out a bridge with drones instead of aircraft or those sea drones, which are slower and easier to hit. That's why I think they did this. I think this is a dry run for Kersh. And I think this was also a warning to Moscow, like, see this thing? Structurally, not that different from the Kersh Bridge. Same system, and it's probably on granite. It's probably on harder ground than the Kersh is, because you've talked about how the Kersh is basically
Well, this is
built in
this is the
mud.
Dnipro.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is the Dnipro, which is a completely different. I mean, it's a river
geographical
to
area.
begin.
Yeah, right.
It's a river to begin with, so you don't have along the coastal regions, or say in a strait where you might have a lot of built up silt. For example, the Kerch Strait has a geographic thing. I'm trying to remember exactly how it goes, because it goes up and then it goes down, if I'm remembering correctly. And so that's why all the silt collects along the strait. The Dnipro is rarely like that. There are
Yeah.
sections that are a little bit more gummy than others, but yeah, I'm sure that this bridge was built on far more secure, and you're not talking about as long a stretch of territory as well. So you may be 100% right that it might not only be a practice run, but it also could be sending a message. And then, it's also a message, by the way, that I wish our own Western militaries were listening to
Mm-hmm.
and paying attention to, because
Right.
the we know that there are Gulf states that are chumming up to Ukrainians, trying to take advantage of their expertise, maybe even get some of their older generation drones that aren't really applicable here, get them down into the Gulf to knock out Shahed drones. But the Western powers, it isn't just Western powers I'm hearing this from. I'm hearing this from Ukrainians
Right.
who go over to the West, and they go and they talk to American or whatever, Brits or whatever, take your pick, and they keep coming back and they keep telling me the same thing. They're not listening to us. They're not.
Right.
It's like it goes in one ear and out the other, because they still want to be doing these large ticket items, these
Mm-hmm.
F-35s and these large air defense
Sure.
systems that are meant to take out planes, or even intercontinental or medium range missiles like Scud level missiles, the S-300s or the 400s. That's not what's needed anymore. War's changed.
Right.
It's already moved past that, and I really wish that the American military, in particular, was paying more attention, but they're not. They're still very condescending towards the Ukrainians. They're still they still look at Ukrainians as a kind of ad hoc military. Even the head of Rheinmetall we discussed last week, I think it was, described these workshops where they're building drones as moms in their kitchens putting together Legos. And it's like, well, you know what, dude? Those drones that are being put together in little Ukrainian mothers' kitchens, those are destroying multi-million-dollar armored systems. The kind of armored systems that you continue to try and put on the market because you think that war is still the same. It is not. And we better wake up to that fact pretty darn quick. And I still contend, and I think if this war goes on, the war in the Gulf, we're gonna see what Iran can really do with drones at some point.
Right. Well,
because I don't think they've done it yet.
Well, I was even saying, like,
done it yet.
They're converting office buildings in downtown Tehran into drone factories right now, like, because it's the only way to protect them. So they're going to use civilian human shields because it works against the United States in a way that it doesn't work in reverse.
Is that too?
And we lost an A-10 Warthog and 2 helicopters going after our F-15 pilot. And those were all providing cover for the people who were looking, for this pilot at one point. So they were brought out as well as far as we know, but they have not been addressed. The pilots of those, have not been fully addressed in, anywhere. They're so focused on the fact that we got out the pilot of the F-15 that another U.S. warplane, an A-10 Warthog, also crashed near the Strait of Hormuz on Friday. According to Fox News, the Warthog was providing cover for rescue teams searching for the pilot. The Iranian military said its air defenses brought down the A-10, released a video that it claimed showed the aircraft being shot down, but U.S. officials have not said what caused the A-10 crash. 2 rescue helicopters were also hit on Friday during the operation to locate the missing airmen. Iran's state TV, aired all about this, and they talk about how the guy was there, but they don't talk about the pilots of the A-10 or the people in the helicopters at all, which I find hinky as shit. So speaking of hinky as shit, though, let's stay on Ukraine and Russia for this. One of my favorite things, and don't let the post time on this is how long the person who's been posting on here, he's been posting since August 22nd, 2019. This is how they do this on Ukraine Today.
That's my good friend, Jonathan Fink.
That's right. So this is a post from Jonathan Fink about this is Friday, April 3rd. This is last Friday. Everything has stopped working. Russian digital blackout intensifies into a crisis. So this is last Friday. Russia goes offline and Muscovites are not loving it. Chevenet arrives and Russians discover consequences. On Friday morning, April 3rd, at around 10 o'clock Moscow time, Russia stopped working. The money stopped dispensing and flowing. Sberbank, Russia's largest lender, went down. Then VTB, then T-Bank, then Trump's old buddy Alpha Bank, then Gazprom Bank, which is the one that funnels all their natural gas stuff. The one that Gazprom is obviously the company that what Carter Page was a courier for. Knows nothing about the topic, but managed to fly back and forth, and meet with the Trump administration backstage and Russians all the time. Then central bank's own faster payment system, the interbank rail that processes QR code transfers and phone number payments. This is the kind of thing where they, like WeChat, that they use to pay for stuff with your phone. That went down. All of it simultaneously across Moscow, St. Petersburg, Samara, Novosibirsk, Sverdlovsk, and Chelyabinsk. Chelyabinsk. Card terminals in shops threw errors. ATMs refused to dispense cash. Mobile banking apps wouldn't open. In Moscow Metro, turnstiles stopped accepting bank cards. Staff had to wave passengers through for free just to stop crowds from forming. Petrol stations demanded cash. A regional zoo in Belgrade put up a sign asking visitors to pay in physical rubles. Traffic jams stretched for kilometers on toll roads because the payment gates wouldn't read cards. Spurbank alone logged more than 4,000 complaints in a single hour. This is the sound of a country sliding towards a digital cage. The Kremlin is the one building it, and Russians are only just waking up to the realization they will have no rights and soon will have no privileges. This is the problem with when you shut down, part of the thing we talked about is them shutting down Telegram access. But you can't take that down without taking down other stuff because people will find a way. Imagine a situation where for a penny transaction, somebody could use something like Venmo and send a message to someone. And it only costs you a penny,
Right.
but you just go, I'm going to send a penny and then a screed of whatever. That's, it's a toll on it, but it's easy to do.
Or let's 20 minutes from now, everybody get to Pushkin Square.
Right. Yes, that's exactly right. And yeah. And you send it out for a penny to everybody on this pay app because it's a public pay app, as we famously found out with Matt Gates's payments in Venmo because he hadn't made them private. Everybody saw when he was paying for tuition for high school and first year college girls, which was obviously just cover for buying them whatever ecstasy and liquor. Under the age of 21 and flying them out of state on fake IDs made by his buddy who's now in jail. But one of the reasons we know about a lot of that stuff and why the ethics committee was so, sure they were going to get a conviction against him and get him kicked out of the house was because his Venmo payments were messaging apps as well. And so you can use any of those for that. So what do you do in a panic? You got to shut them down. You make people they got to gather together and then you could spot them. Then you can have people old fashioned Russia style, cameras on street corners, agents of the GRU and FSB watching where certain people walk and they're all gathering in one apartment or whatever. You go in and arrest everybody under cover of night, start throwing people in vans. The less you know, the better off you are, right? People just watch it happen. So that, and again, like I said, The Economist is saying basically they are fucked. They're in a death spiral of their own making.
And if they want to stop, and also, because it's my understanding, that this was not an attack. They did it themselves. This was an experiment of theirs.
Yeah.
And I think it also sent a message to the people of like, behave yourself or we can make your lives very, very difficult because you are so reliant.
We can stop your life in your tracks.
Russians are actually very, very advanced when it comes to using their phones to pay for things. And
a lot of China technology over there. They cop
that's
WeChat.
How they live.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't go to the subway and tap into the subway with a card or buy a ticket or
put dollars into a fucking the old fashioned change machine at a video an arcade.
Even little old grandmas know how to do this, now, and they're reliant on it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a message that could be sent by saying, behave yourselves or things are going to get sticky, or if there's a run on the banks, they can shut that down pretty quick as well. Because I remember being in Russia in the 90s when the devaluation of the ruble happened, and there was a massive run on the banks, and it nearly collapsed the entire economy. Matter of fact, it more or less did, which is what brought about, in many ways, the change of government with Yeltsin, because everybody was like, we have to change. We have got to get rid of this guy. So if they have to control their citizens' finances and the way they live in a digital world, they can do it. And I think that's what a lot of that was about.
Right. Agreed. The other thing too is that most of there could be another factor of this where the Russians can't afford for their money to go to the people. It's got to go to the war effort. So one of the this is a lot of times when you do something this extreme, it has to have 2 or 3 reasons behind it. One, checking one box isn't enough to do something this heavy. It's not like, you don't wake up one morning and go, well, let's show them who's boss. It's a couple of things happening at once. Like we'll use this for this too. And Trump does this, his people around him do it. I don't know how much he can factor any of this. But if you want to tighten people's belts and make them afraid, and only use cash, which will also limit what they buy and when they buy, they won't do it as easily. If you shut down Amazon tomorrow, for example, in the United States, and everybody had to go back to the mall to buy shit, it would slow down commerce in the United States like 20%. Consumer spending would drop because you'd have to get in your car to go, especially with the price of gas. You'd have to get in your car and go to the store, and you'd really choose when you were going to go, as opposed to impulse buying, like you're standing in line and everything is a People magazine on your way to checkout. So that it could be that as well, that they need the money to go there because they are taking in one of the things that they're benefiting from the Strait of Hormuz being closed, and it is that they're Trump has lifted the sanctions on them by and large, and given them ways to wink and nod, circumvent it as well. Is that they're using their pipelines. They're, because China and India need it. So they're just using this as another excuse. So because of the Strait of Hormuz being closed, the German-Russian Foreign Trade Center chamber reported on Tuesday that Russia's profits from exporting oil, gas, and fertilizer amounted to $11.5 billion a month. Russia's the big winner in the new war in the Middle East. Russia's benefiting from a higher global commodity price because it uses other export routes. All this could bring Russia an unexpected windfall on a historic scale. The sustained oil price around $100 a barrel. Russia could expect an annual increase of $71 billion compared with the budget that they put forward. So they've got $71 billion in extra revenue coming in because as long as the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. So they benefit from it.
Well, but considering they lost 73% of their income,
right,
for fossil fuels from last year,
they're not gonna dig out of it that fast.
They still got
right.
They got a lot of things to make up. Not that I'm being glib about it. They should not be getting that kind of money. We should not be raising sanctions. I don't care about what that does to the oil, the global oil market. We'll pay for it later if the Russians do actually get a strategic advantage because of this. And it's not great. It's not great, but it's not catastrophic either. And we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. How long this? It all boils down to the same things. How long can this last?
Right.
And what is that? And what does that mean? And then do we go back to reinstating sanctions, which is what we should do, or does Trump just kind of go, well, we lifted them. Well, what's the point in reinstating them?
Right.
Which of course would be the exact wrong thing to do. So
right.
I think people are right. I think the big winners out of this so far are the Russians and the Iranians themselves. How big of an advantage is for both of those countries, we'll have to wait and see. I think Iran probably, if I were to put money on it, would be the ones that really come out of this the winner, because I think ultimately Russia is already so dilapidated and damaged and falling apart, and what has happened to them in this war already has done such grievous harm to them that it's going to take them years and years, probably decades, to get back to being stable again. And even when they are stable, I don't think they'll be changing their ways anytime soon. I don't think it'll exactly help the vast numbers of Russian people. It'll help the oligarchy.
Right.
But regardless, anyhow, it is a wait and see situation. Right now, the Russians are benefiting. I don't think it's a benefit enough that it's going to change the lay of the land here in the combat zone. We'll see. We're expecting an offensive soon, but you also have to consider that the Russians are definitely sending some of their munitions, not just some, a fair bit of munitions to Iran. They're helping with targeting. They're helping with all sorts of things. So they're sending some of the money, right back at Iran.
Right.
So we'll see. I cannot answer the question of whether or not this is going to be a game changer for Russia in their war effort. This like lifting the sanction and this kind of boon, this windfall of you picking up where the slack is because of the Strait of Hormuz and all the rest of it. Um, because I don't think anybody can answer that question yet. We'll have to see what happens. And you don't just buy a bunch of missile systems or whatever it is that you want to spend this money on,
Right.
and then it's deployed a week later. This is the money that they will be making over the next coming period, whatever it is, will not be on the battlefield until probably the beginning of next year's fighting season,
Hmm.
should the war still be going on. They're not going to be deploying tanks that are built with the money, or I mean, they can buy from China. They can do all sorts of stuff, and those will be pretty quick to get to the battlefield. But they're not going to. I don't think it's going to change this year's offensive. Again, nobody can really say for sure, but we'll have
Right.
to wait and see.
Yeah. I mean, let me show you again. This is let me close this out so I can show you this area. Here's the Strait of Hormuz right now. Again, it's a parking lot over here. It's a parking lot over here. I guess there's some presumption. I mean, there's some ships that have paid their toll and are underway. These are the ones up here. Basically, these have to go here. They have to transfer some crypto or bow or something, and then they head this direction. And it'll say, 11 minutes ago this was here, and it's going 10 knots. Nothing's going super fast. These are all loitering even up here. It's like these boats aren't moving for fear of something else happened. Some of these are just again anchored. Some of these are being towed in a fucking circle. But that is not open by any stretch, because this traffic and this traffic would be, running past each other like a fucking freeway, like I said before. Look at all these backed up ships.
Mhm.
Look at that. But these are the boats that have stuff and want to leave. These are the boats that are, a bunch of these are also dicking around in the sea, waiting over here to see if they can get in. And then there's all sorts of
Yeah.
other trade that's going on. You can see where, like, the other angle over here, where they're going past the Red Sea, past Yemen, a lot.
Suez.
Yep. Saudi Arabia is obviously using its coast over here and its pipeline to get stuff out this way. So you're seeing a lot of this is what the traffic. See this traffic right here. This is similar. This is like a smaller version because it's even tighter over here. This is even a smaller area. So it's like a 2-lane bridge versus a 5-lane bridge, but it's basically the same circumstance. See how the traffic is all happening there? That is going through that strait right there. Over here, that ain't happening. I got to squeeze in here. Go in, will you? Come on. Okay, hold on. So this is, there you go. Nothing. They're just parked.
Yep.
Their destinations have been set. You don't even have a directional. Here's one moving. It's going 1.2 knots, meaning it's probably just repositioning and moving out of somebody else's way over here. There's a ton of activity over here. One of our military ships is over here on the inside, past the strait. See if I can bring just the warships. Yeah, here you go. So there's a Iranian boat right here. And then there's the U.S. Michael Murphy is over here. And then I don't know that ours are up in here. Yeah, there's Karg Island, by the way. Show you what the traffic looks like around Karg Island. So we just hit them again. After the ceasefire was called, we struck Karg again. Get out of here. Yeah, right after that. So here we go. So yeah, see how everybody's along this side? These are all the boats that need this passageway. And here's very little happening over here. There's a star line on here. It's just its destination is there, and so that's where it's going. It's going to stay. And then there's some of these it's hard to tell like what their purpose is or what they're. Yeah, here's a tanker. It's anchored. It's not going anywhere.
Mm.
Yeah, like and same with these. Anytime it's not a triangle. If anybody wants to go look at this, it's marinevesseltraffic.com. But I mean, this tells the truth of what the circumstance is. You know, it's like when we look at ISW's shots of the between their interactive map of what's going on in Ukraine, Russia. You want to see what's really happening on the line? You're going to see it there. And no matter what Trump's saying or Putin's saying, you're going to see the reality of it. See if I can drag the here you go. The Institute for the Study of War. Here you go. Dink. Where are you? Yeah. So the reality is, why am I going to that one? I want Russia and Ukraine. I'll see update that part of it. But I guess as we're getting near the the bottom, do you have a show for On the Edge this week, or are you still
Not
getting
this
up and
week,
running?
but we finally fixed it. We just didn't. We need to do one more thing, and then we can start filming again. So not this week, but next week
Great.
we'll be back on the air.
Okay, gotcha. So there is a like here's this is the latest from it's relatively latest from ISW, and this is kind of key. The Washington Post did an article about this. Hold on, let me make this bigger because it'll be difficult to read for everybody here. Boop, show it on the reader because there you go. Putin is failing, and these charts prove it. This is from the Washington Post, but this is the clear part of it. Like this is the spike from the original attack, and then this is what they did for a month after, and then this has been it the entire time. It's just a fucking meat wave grind with nothing. Meanwhile, the casualties have caught up, and this was as of January. We're well past this now. It's 1.29 right now. Another 200,000 or another 100,000 dead in the last 3 months. Ukraine forces have not only held Russian advances to a slow crawl, but they have begun to push Russian forces back in localized counterattacks since last autumn. Ukrainian forces liberated the town of Kupiansk in Kharkiv,
which is incredible.
Yep,
absolutely. To take Kupiansk was
huge,
amazing.
Yeah. In November, it retook tactically important positions in Zaporizhia, like you were talking about before, and Petrovsk Oblast last month. In fact, Ukrainian forces have made net daily gains more frequently over the past 6 months than they had in the previous 9. Ukraine's been making more territorial gains this year. There was a huge push here, obviously. Bink. In November, that was the big push, but they're gaining. They're only lost in other areas. These are, like minor dips for other. It's just relocating people. Meanwhile, Russian weekly gains this year are below the highs from last year. Indeed, Ukraine liberated more land than Russian forces seized in the last 2 weeks of February. There it goes. This is the stuff they're grabbing, which is still nothing, by the way. But this is the way this is sloping right now. Nothing in the data supports Russian claims that Ukrainian lines are about to break.
No. Yeah, I was just out there. I was out on the front lines about a month ago. I guess it was roughly 5 weeks ago, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
No, the lines are not going to break. Firstly, that's just judging by the morale. It's judging by the composition of the forces. They are not in disrepair. They're well fed. They're getting paid. Machinery is being maintained. They've got these workshops where they're building and modifying and arming and coordinating drone warfare. Less than 5 kilometers off the actual 0 point. So if you get a call in from a guy who says, I need a bomber drone. Well, they can adjust the drone within 15 minutes, 20 minutes with, mortar rounds and get that drone up in the air. Another guy calls in and says, I've got a team that is infiltrating and they're bunkering down in this trench line. I need a first person view kamikaze drone. Boom, that's up in the air. They coordinate in kind of like I wish I could have filmed it, but it was prohibited for security reasons.
Sure.
They coordinate these drones in basically a Zoom call. And there's an officer, a watch command officer, who sits there and watches 12 different screens of drones with different capabilities and in different locations. Some are spotters, some are bombers, some are kamikaze. These guys are nowhere near breaking. That Russian propaganda is complete
It's
bullshit.
cartoonish. Yeah.
It's cartoonish, and and not only that, but so we've talked many times about the string of fortress cities that
Mhm.
are in the east. So we've been talking about Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk. That's the southeastern line of contact, and
Right.
that's the one that leads to the Sea of Azov and would cut off Crimea. North, up in Donbass, the Russians are trying to push into these industrialized cities that are basically built in a chain of connection, and they are old industrial cities with factories and foundries and all this kind of industrialization. It can be turned into absolute fortresses, and that's what they've done. And they've been doing that for many years. I mean, 10 years,
Right.
right? I mean, this is a long, long time. But not only that, in order to approach those cities, there's line after line after line after line of defenses leading up to the fortress cities. And only within the last 6 months, the Ukrainians have come out and said, given all the things we have learned about modern warfare, and by that, of course, they mean primarily drone warfare, we
Right.
have built we are now building behind the fortress cities. Not
Mhm.
that we're anticipating a breach, but if there were to be a breach of the fortress cities, we now have line after line after line of these brand new, high tech, fully kitted out with the understanding of modern warfare, further lines of defense that lead up to places like Kharkiv or even to Kiev. So this idea that suddenly there's going to be a rout or a collapse of the
Right.
Ukrainian military is complete bunk, and I can say that from firsthand experience.
Right.
I've been there. I've seen it. I've seen it with my own two eyes. I talk to Ukrainian soldiers all the time. That's wishful thinking at best,
Right.
and more likely than not a psyop, because it's just simply not true. The Ukrainians are ready to fight, willing to fight, and fully capable of fighting for years to come.
Well,
So let's hope to God it doesn't come to that,
right.
but they can do it.
So this is
Yeah,
this is the front line. Look at this
there it is.
this territory, yeah, where Ukraine has taken this back. These areas that are claimed taken territory by Russia are areas they have taken and lost and taken and lost and taken and lost and taken and lost. Like that, they're reclaiming the same piece of land and losing it and getting it. This is different than that. The Russian line used to be here. But this bit over here has just been contested and back and forth. It's like when you're, bad analogy, but when you're playing if anybody's ever played Call of Duty, they have like this capture the flag kind of thing where they have 3 flags and your team can really only have enough people to keep one, all the time. And then the other 2 is what you're fighting for the rest of the time. And if you're holding one and another player enters that area, it goes from yours to contested. It's a little flag goes up and lets you know, oh, hey, you don't completely have this. It's not completely secure. That's what those orange areas are. This yellowish area right here. That's Russian, again, loss and regain over and over and over. And yet, if you see these little areas of blue in here, look at that. contested area, according to Russia, but held in all the important areas. If you'll notice, there's like structures around these areas. And the Ukrainians are, like the Russians will claim like this is a field, right? They'll just claim they have this field, which again, based on what? Maybe old trenches dug, and they just assume that we'll take it back later. We got these trenches, so fuck you. But look at this. Look at that area that Ukraine has taken right here. That is a major move. That's not these like back and forth pissing contests. This is huge on their part. And it's been going that direction since, arguably the entire time. Because again, Russia's been doing this on a treadmill for a while. Look at this area up here. Like this idea that Russia was going to seize all this and keep it. And yeah, this is the Kharkiv Oblast right here.
Well, they can't do both.
Kharkiv.
They can't do both. And that's what the Ukrainians have been saying is that this proves they can either go for the north or they can go for the south.
Right.
They can't do both. They don't have the means to do that. And the Ukrainians are taking advantage of it. And there's, of course, a lot of other reasons why. They have telecommunications problems within the Russian military, and there's all sorts of things going on that side of the equation as well.
A problem of their own making, by the way.
Of their own making, yeah. But if they can push to the sea, and that's not it won't be easy to get, but it's not a lot of territory actually. And so if there was to be a breakthrough, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if it was on the Ukrainian side.
Right.
And again, if they can push to the sea and they can cut Crimea off, they will bring the bridge down, and Crimea will be cut off.
Yeah, well, and especially in this area, because this has always been the area where they've been forcing Russia to fight for this, because this is the punch through, because there's not a lot to support until you get to Berdyansk over here. This is just land. It's a lot of territory, but it's not a lot. It's not a town like Melitopol down here, or any of these
not
areas.
Industrialized.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And there's a big stretch of that land right in this area, right here, right there. And if they could punch through in any of that area, or even just have control over it via drones, which is increasingly looking like what they're going to end up doing, which is creating pathways where there's so many loitering drones that Russia might claim it has it, but they don't have air superiority, and they don't have, if they send a plane in there, it's going to get knocked down by a cheap drone. And then at some point, this giant push through to the sea, and then they end up taking Berdyansk or one of these places, and the Russians have to just rush everybody down here to do this kind of like Red Sea sides to try and fight the corridor, which nobody will be in. It'll just be drones. It is nuts. And again, this doesn't, like the Ukrainians have made a lot of advances, but this doesn't look, it certainly isn't bigger than what Russia claimed it had in the beginning. It certainly doesn't look anywhere near what they're claiming they should get in a ceasefire or a peace plan. They're treading water, killing their own people against a much smaller force. And people could say that, like, without us, they don't have any arms or whatever. Like,
it's not true.
Yeah, it's not. Because, by the way, Europe is supporting them as well. And then,
and they already produce over 60% of their own needs domestically. Ukrainian military-industrial complex is going to be enormous on the global stage.
And this war is over. Your girlfriend Maria Zakharova announced on April 7th that the Russian government has issued a warning to the Baltic states regarding their alleged decision to allow Ukrainian drones to operate in their airspace. Zakharova threatened that Russia will take unspecified retaliatory measures. It's very Trumpy language. If the Baltic states fail to heed Russia's warning, which is just fucking stupid, but whatever, Russian State Duma deputies also accused the Baltic states of committing acts of aggression against Russia by being complicit in Ukrainian drone operations against Russia, and claimed that Russian forces will destroy any alleged Ukrainian drones over Baltic airspace and may impose unspecified blockades on the Baltic states. Like, dear God, what are you going to do? Block us off from you?
Hit dog will holler.
But yeah, build that wall, right? The Kremlin may be setting conditions to use these allegations as the basis for military action in the airspace over one or more of the Baltic states. So the idea is to use this as an excuse because they want to push into the Baltic states eventually. I still don't see them doing this without getting gigantic fucking stomp back from everybody else in Europe. So,
then it's Article 5.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Article 5, and it will be Article 5 with or without the Americans.
Exactly, right. And it'll be plenty because if Ukraine's giving the Russians what for, like the rest of Europe joining in even without us, even if, Trump
Canadians.
Trump and Hungary
God, send the Canadians over.
Right. Trump and Hungary can, whine about it, but it's not going to change a fucking thing. And he can't get us out of NATO without Congress, and he's not going to. So it's just,
and Hungary may change.
Yeah,
Orban doesn't look campaign
good.
Does not look like it's doing all that red hot.
Well, don't you think that the magic of JD Vance's Riz rolling into that country and throwing his magic sauce all over that election won't make it easier? Yeah. Anyways, we went a little bit over, but I appreciate you being here, Phil. Please stay safe, and we'll see you on Saturday for the radio show. And stay safe.
And we are this close to being back up and running at the studio, which is another reason, by the way, before we go, the studio has been knocked out for almost 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of the massive winter campaign to attack civilian electrical grids. Okay. So, the knock-on effect of what Trump is proposing by hitting civilian electrical grids, not that I'm making any kind of comparison, but the secondary, tertiary, and further down the road effects of doing that to a civilian population is why it's a war crime. And I shudder to think about incubators and dialysis machines, and so this is why it's a war crime. Not knocking our little television studio off the air, but the knock-on effect of what it does to an electrical grid that is unpredictable is the reason why you should not target
civilian infrastructure. Absolutely.
Infrastructure.
Yep. And the Russians have been doing this specifically. They've been doing it the entire time, but now they've stepped it up because they feel either because Iran has distracted the world, or when Gaza distracted the world, it gave them cover. At the height of these things, you could probably track their strikes on civilian infrastructure are at the when the news day is being eaten by Iran or Israel, Gaza, or related Hezbollah stuff and that kind of thing. So, anyways, be safe while that is going on.
Yep,
because it's a real thing.
We'll talk to you on Saturday.
Absolutely. All right, be well, my friend.
All right, take care, everybody.
All right, there you go,
everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Philip Ittner live from Kyiv. I'm very proud of the fact that the little show that could over here has had the honor of having our own correspondent inside the country for almost the entirety of this war. I don't see anybody else doing that. Even in our, on our big buddy networks, the Midas Brothers and all this stuff, and Godspeed to them. And I hope they have Phil on. I'm just saying. But nobody else is doing this, and nobody's doing it on the regular. And I'm committed to doing this, till this is brought to a close. This just like Friday I might drag you guys kicking and screaming to, some folks to, see what's going on in this, but I just don't want to, let it go. It's crucial. And a constant reminder that this is ongoing, and that the Russians are still striking civilians, and they're going to, and that they're behind a bunch of other awful in the world, like stuff that's going on in Sudan and others. Like, look where the AK-47 shows up, right? That's a big sign. It's not an accident. And so my goal is that, and I think that, our side is winning in this regard, even if, Trump is pretending that he's a winner in this circumstance, because I don't think the American people want us to be like Russia. And we will not. So that's why I'm pushing everybody to vote this year. It's the most important thing. Our goal this year: red districts purple, purple districts blue. You get extra points if you go from red to blue. That's the best. Bluer is a waste of fucking time right now. It's a tired, sad, self-inflicted wound. It means nothing. Even if you're right about whoever that person is, it doesn't matter in the overall votes. It does not. If you've got a blue there, keep it. This is not the time to solve those kind of problems. When you're on the, we'll talk about an exercise program and eating right after we get the patient up off the table while we're in open heart surgery right now. That's a conversation for later. So anyways, I love you guys, and I thank you for the support and the encouragement. I hope you'll check out the single. Hold on one second. Let's see if I can bring this up on my DistroKid. Yeah. I guess. Well, it's on my the 01 YouTube page as well. So hold on, I'll just open it this way. So if you want to pop over there and play the song, give it a turn on your table, as it were. Blue Marble is now out on there it is, as a 01 single. It's our first single in quite some time. So I hope you enjoy it. If it's too loud for you, I'll put out an acoustic version very soon. You guys rule. I love you. I'll see you this afternoon. Moon dust over my hands. You look up,
but your sky is crowded. Tiny screens drowning
out the span.
Every face glowing in the blue light. Every street
I'm not going to play the whole thing anymore on the show, just so people play it there. See what I did there? Laugh.
like it's just another cloud. From up there, you're a blue marble.
Godspeed, Artemis.
Bruised paper thin halo hanging abused.
Huge.
Held my breath as you spun.
Fun in the dark. How can you find what you are? Can you find? All right, there we go. All right, I'll just let you look good. All right.
Scratched window, porcelain, balanced on black. Every wall looked like dust and water. Every border just a nerve.
Cool, we're gonna raid Cliff right now. Excellent. All right, out I go.